There comes a moment in every man's life when his chest feels heavy, not because of weakness, but because of everything he swallowed in silence. Every insult, every humiliation, every moment he pretended it didn't hurt. And that moment becomes the turning point. The moment you say, never again will you allow someone to treat you like your value is negotiable. Never again will you permit disrespect, excuses, or betrayal to walk freely in your life. You weren't born to be stepped on. You were born to rise, to dominate, to command your destiny. Pain has shaped you, loss has sharpened you, and doubt has trained you. But now it's time to reclaim what was always yours. Your power, your standards, your self-respect. People only disrespect what they believe won't fight back. So the day you stand tall, speak with fire, and act with discipline, the world will adjust. Respect isn't requested. It's earned through presence, strength, and boundaries. From this moment forward, you don't beg for respect. You demand it through the life you live. This is your awakening, your rebirth. The version of you that tolerated disrespect is gone. The version of you arriving now is unstoppable. Setting boundaries ruthlessly is not an act of cruelty. It's an act of self-respect and survival. Most people go through life apologizing for their standards, whispering their worth, and tolerating behavior that slowly destroys their confidence from the inside out. They don't even realize how much they've allowed others to shape their identity. What you allow is what will continue, and the world takes advantage of anyone who doesn't defend their dignity. If you don't decide what is acceptable for you, someone else will decide it for you. People will push, drain, disrespect, and use you until you finally draw a line. And the painful truth is this: most people only learn to respect you once you enforce consequences, not when you simply speak about them. Your boundaries are the invisible armor that protects your mental energy, your growth, your ambition, your peace, and your future. Without boundaries, life becomes chaos. You wake up feeling empty, tired, confused about why people treat you the way they do. But look carefully. Every time someone crossed a line, you had a chance to put your foot down, and you didn't. You stayed silent, hoping they would magically change. You didn't want conflict. You didn't want to be seen as harsh, or you didn't want to lose them. But in reality, you were losing yourself. Letting people walk over you doesn't make you kind. It makes you invisible. And people don't respect what they can't see. A man without boundaries becomes a shadow of who he could be. He becomes someone who gives more than he receives, who listens more than he speaks, who forgives more than he should, and who gets less respect than he deserves. But the moment you decide to set boundaries, everything changes. The energy shifts. Your presence becomes stronger. Your communication becomes clearer. The world starts adjusting to you instead of you adjusting to everyone else. People who used to manipulate you get uncomfortable. People who are taking advantage of your kindness start to feel threatened. People who benefited from your silence suddenly hate the sound of your voice. That's because boundaries expose the truth. They show who actually valued you and who only valued what you could give them. Setting boundaries isn't just about saying no. It's about saying yes to the life you want. It's about saying yes to your future, yes to your goals, yes to your self-worth. It's about refusing to let anyone drain your energy or break your spirit again. You must understand something clearly. Good people are treated badly because they allow it. Strong people are respected because they demand it. You need to become a man whose standards are felt, not just spoken. A man who walks away the moment disrespect appears. A man who doesn't negotiate his value. A man who simply doesn't tolerate nonsense. And once you adopt this mindset, something powerful happens. Your environment upgrades automatically. The wrong people fall off. The right people appear. Your communication becomes sharper. You stop replying to things that waste your time. You stop chasing people who don't reciprocate. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't listen. You stop entertaining energy that doesn't align with your life. Boundaries force the world to treat you better. Every time you enforce one, you build a stronger version of yourself. Every time you say no to something harmful, you say yes to something greater. You must practice this ruthlessly. If someone disrespects you, you drop distance between you and them. If someone constantly takes without giving, you cut access. If someone belittles your dreams, you remove their voice from your mind. If someone breaks your trust, you treat them like a past chapter, not a future one. You don't need to fight, shout, threaten, or argue. Boundaries don't require noise. They they require consistency. When people see that you are serious, truly serious, about protecting your peace, they will start respecting you in ways they never did before. But don't be fooled. Setting boundaries comes with a price. Some people will be angry. Some will call you selfish. Some will say you've changed, and they're right, you have changed. You changed because the version of you that tolerated disrespect had to die. The version of you that lived for validation had to disappear. The version of you that accepted little had to be buried. Growth always looks like loss to those who benefited from your lack of boundaries. They aren't upset because you changed. They're upset because they can no longer use you. They can no longer walk through the door you kept open for too long. They can no longer exploit your kindness. And that is exactly why you must continue. Setting boundaries is not a one-time act. It is a lifestyle. It is a commitment to yourself. It is choosing peace over approval, choosing self-worth over attachment, choosing standards over loneliness. You must become comfortable with disappointing others if it means protecting yourself. You must understand that the people who truly care will adjust and respect you. The ones who don't were never meant to remain in your life. Boundaries don't push the right people away. They filter out the wrong ones. And once the wrong ones leave, life becomes lighter. Your focus becomes clearer. Your growth becomes faster. You begin attracting people who value your presence, respect your time, and match your energy. That is the reward for setting boundaries ruthlessly. Your life upgrades, your environment strengthens, and your spirit becomes unbreakable. Discipline creates respect because discipline is the purest form of self-control, and people are naturally drawn to those who control themselves when everyone else is controlled by impulses, emotions, and weaknesses. The world respects strength, consistency, and certainty, and discipline is the foundation of all three. When a man lives with discipline, he becomes someone others look at with a sense of silent admiration, sometimes envy, sometimes fear, but always respect. Discipline is not about perfection or being rigid. It's about proving to yourself that your mind is stronger than your excuses. Most people are slaves to their emotions. They wake up only when they feel like it, work only when motivation hits them, eat whatever their cravings dictate, speak without thinking, react without logic, and spend their time chasing instant gratification. And because they live undisciplined lives, they earn undisciplined results: disrespect, failure, chaos, regret, and weakness. But a disciplined man stands out in a world full of distractions and laziness. When people see you wake up early, train hard, speak little, work silently, move with purpose, and stay committed to your standards, they instinctively understand one thing. This is not a man who can be disrespected, because discipline sharpens your presence. It makes you walk differently, speak differently, think differently. You become someone who doesn't get rattled by small things because your mind is trained to stay in control, and people respect what they cannot control. Discipline also builds internal power. The kind of power you don't need to show off because it radiates naturally. When you are disciplined, you don't need validation, attention, or approval from anyone. You're not trying to fit in or be liked. You don't crumble when someone criticizes you or withdraws from you. You don't beg for respect. You earn it with every action you take. People notice when you control your environment instead of letting your environment control you. They notice when you prioritize growth over comfort. They notice when you make choices based on logic, not emotion. In a world full of people who break promises to themselves every single day, a man who keeps his own word becomes rare, and rarity commands respect. Imagine two versions of yourself. One who procrastinates, avoids effort, complains, reacts emotionally, and lets life push him around. And another who wakes up at the same time every day, trains even when tired, holds his temper, chooses discipline over pleasure, and refuses to break under pressure. Which version will people respect? Which version respects himself? Discipline is about building a relationship with yourself so strong that you cannot betray it. Once you master that, the world mirrors the way you treat yourself. If you carry yourself like a man who demands excellence from himself, the world will give you excellence in return. If you treat your mind like a weapon to be sharpened daily, others will never dare to treat you like a dull blade. Discipline changes your energy. When you walk into a room, people feel it even before you speak. They can sense stability, control, and focus. They can sense that you are not a man ruled by impulses or emotions. They can sense that you are not fragile, that inner stability makes others respect your boundaries, your time, your opinion, and your presence. Undisciplined people live chaotic lives because they are constantly at war with themselves. Disciplined people live powerful lives because they have already won the battle within. And when a man conquers himself, the world gives him a different level of respect. Discipline also builds results, and results speak louder than anything else. When people see you leveling up, your body improving, your finances growing, your habits strengthening, your mindset sharpening, they start changing the way they talk to you. They start choosing their words more carefully. They start treating you with caution. They start showing respect, not because they fear you, but because they recognize your commitment. Success and discipline are inseparable. And where success appears, respect follows. Even your enemies will respect your work ethic. Even people who dislike you will acknowledge your effort. Even those who try to undermine you will secretly admire your consistency. Discipline forces the world to see your value. But discipline also protects you from disrespect because it removes the neediness that so many people secretly suffer from. When you are disciplined, you don't chase attention, validation, or approval. And people cannot disrespect someone who does not need them. They cannot manipulate someone who is emotionally steady. They cannot play games with someone who thinks with clarity. They cannot shake someone whose mind is anchored by discipline. Discipline creates respect because it creates strength, not the loud kind, not the aggressive kind, but the silent, steady, unshakable kind, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself, the kind that shows through actions, not words, the kind that earns respect effortlessly because people can sense the power behind it. Every moment you choose discipline over comfort, you build a stronger version of yourself. And the stronger you become internally, the more respect you attract externally. This is why discipline is more than a routine. It is an identity. When discipline becomes who you are, respect becomes what you receive. Silence isn't weakness, but silence without action is surrender. And that distinction is what separates a powerful man from a broken one. Most people misunderstand silence. They think being quiet means being passive, being walked over, being soft, being unable to defend yourself. But silence can be the most dominant form of communication when it's backed by inner strength and decisive action. The strongest men in history weren't the ones who shouted the loudest. They were the ones who didn't need to. Their silence carried weight because everyone knew that behind that quiet was a mind that observed, assessed, and acted without hesitation. When you know your worth, you don't argue with people who don't understand it. You let your actions clarify what your words never need to explain. But here's where many fall apart. They stay silent, but their silence comes from fear, from avoiding conflict, from hoping disrespect disappears on its own. That's not strength. That's submission. True silence is intentional. It's strategic. It's the calm before a decision, not the calm before collapse. Too many people swallow disrespect and call it peace, when in reality they are simply afraid to step into their own power. They hope that by saying nothing, things will get better. They hope the person will change. They hope the situation will fix itself. But life does not reward hope. It rewards action. Silence becomes a weapon only when you pair it with boundaries, standards, and consequences. Silence becomes weakness when you use it to avoid standing up for yourself. Real strength is quiet because it doesn't need external noise to validate it. A lion doesn't roar all day to prove he's a lion. He simply walks and everything around him reacts. A disciplined mind doesn't argue or justify. It makes choices, and those choices define everything. When someone disrespects you, you don't need to shout or explain. You don't need to match their energy or play their games. You simply distance yourself, improve yourself, and let your absence speak louder than anything you could have said. But this only works if your silence is backed by self-respect. There are men who stay silent because they don't know what else to do, because they're afraid of losing someone, because they don't want confrontation. That kind of silence destroys your soul. It eats away at your confidence, makes you doubt your worth, and conditions others to believe they can treat you however they want. You cannot stay silent out of fear and expect respect in return. Silence is only powerful when you're willing to walk away, willing to enforce boundaries, willing to take control of your life without needing validation from anyone. Silence becomes a statement when your actions back it up. When you cut access to people who take you for granted, that silence says more than any argument. When you stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you, that silence says you no longer care about their approval. When you choose peace over petty conflict, that silence says your energy is too valuable for chaos. When you choose to improve your life quietly instead of proving yourself loudly, that silence says you are focused on growth, not attention. People start respecting you when they realize they cannot manipulate you with emotions, arguments, or guilt, because your silence is not surrender, it's self-mastery. Silence also gives you power because it gives you clarity. You cannot think clearly while talking. You cannot grow while defending yourself constantly. You cannot improve while wasting energy on noise. Silence lets you observe people's true intentions. It reveals who respects you and who only respects what you give them. It shows you who values your presence and who only values their convenience. It exposes fake loyalty, hidden motives, and weak connections. When you are silent long enough, you start noticing details the loud people never see. You notice how people react when you don't respond immediately. You notice who steps up when you pull back. You notice who begins to treat you differently when you stop giving them unlimited access. You notice who truly values you and who valued the benefit of having you around. But again, this only works when silence is paired with action. Silence without boundaries is just you abandoning yourself. Silence with boundaries is you upgrading your life. Silence without consequences is weakness. Silence with consistency is strength. People respect what is rare, and a man who does not react emotionally, who does not waste words, who does not explain his value endlessly, becomes rare and therefore respected. The world is full of people who talk too much and do too little. A man who talks less and does more becomes someone others watch, follow, and admire. He becomes unpredictable in the best way. You cannot be manipulated if you are not emotionally reactive. You cannot be controlled if you do not give people your triggers. You cannot be underestimated if your silence holds power. Most people reveal all their insecurities when they talk too much. They show their desperation for approval. They show their neediness for attention. They show their inability to control their emotions. But when you master silence, you master yourself. And when you master yourself, the world stops treating you like a boy and begins treating you like a man. Silence is not weakness. Silence is understanding your power so deeply that you don't need noise to display it. It is self-confidence in its purest form. It is strength wrapped in calmness. It is the mark of someone who is unshakable, unmoved, and undeniably in control of himself. In the end, everything comes back to one truth. The world will always test you, push you, underestimate you, and disrespect you if you allow it. Life does not hand respect to anyone. It is carved through discipline, boundaries, and unshakable self-worth. You cannot continue living as a version of yourself that bends for everyone while breaking inside. You cannot allow your silence to come from fear or your tolerance to come from weakness. The moment you decide that you will no longer accept a life beneath your potential, the universe shifts in your favor. Your entire reality begins to change the second you change the way you allow people to treat you. Respect is not earned by shouting, arguing, or demanding it. Respect is earned by transforming yourself into the kind of person people cannot ignore. When you walk with discipline, speak with clarity, move with purpose, and refuse to tolerate disrespect, your presence changes. People behave differently around you. They step carefully. They choose their words. They feel your boundaries before you even say them. And this kind of respect can only be achieved through mastery of your mind. Silence when needed, action when necessary, and discipline at all times. The man who controls himself controls the room, the relationship, the outcome, and ultimately his destiny. But none of this happens unless you are willing to walk away from the version of yourself that accepted disrespect, excuses, and betrayal. Growth demands sacrifice. If you want a life of power, you must kill the weak habits that kept you powerless. If you want respect, you must stop giving your time, your energy, and your attention to anything or anyone that treats you like you are disposable. Your boundaries must be solid. Your discipline must be unwavering, and your silence must be strategic. Not a retreat, but a preparation for decisive action. This is the evolution every strong man must go through, the death of the soft version of yourself and the birth of the unbreakable one. And when you finally become that version, focused, disciplined, self-respecting, and unshakable, the world will treat you differently because you will treat yourself differently. You will no longer chase what doesn't value you. You will no longer explain yourself to people who don't listen. You will no longer trade your peace for temporary comfort. Instead, you will walk with a presence that demands respect without asking. You will live with standards that protect your dignity. You will act with a level of self-control that makes others rise to your level or fall out of your life. This is the moment your rebirth begins. This is the moment you take back your power. And from today forward, you will never again allow anyone, including yourself, to disrespect the man you are becoming. Thank you for giving your time, your focus, and your energy to this message. If this speech sparked something inside you, hold on to it. Don't let it fade. Carry this mindset with you every single day and become the strongest version of yourself. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate your growth. Stay disciplined, stay unshakable, and never let anyone disrespect your worth again. Thank you for watching, and goodbye for now. More power to you.